1, 2, 3. Okay, so here we are. And I thought what we do is just go through, to start some of our sensei stuff, okay? Again, it's important to me that that sort of represents the center of training. Okay, for right now, we don't really have the opportunity to go to a dojo and have a class. Okay, that's for the moment or for the extended period forward. It's unclear when that will happen again. I do believe it will happen. But also, we are in charge of our own development. And if Aikido is about finding harmony, ideally, or establishing, building harmony in any situation, then this is it's also practice. So we're just going to go and I happen to kind of catch on a couple of things that I just want to kind of reiterate here. Sensei really talks a lot about the manifest, the hidden, and the divine. The Genkai, Yukai, Shinkai. And one of the references in there is travel freely between the Genkai, the manifest, is the obvious reality we're in, with all its different shades. The Yukai is kind of the hidden realm. The less obvious. It's here. It's as real or even more real than the manifest. But my own collective sense of who I am is so bonded to the Genkai that oftentimes, we disregard or don't recognize or tap into the Yukai. Then there's a Shinkai, which he defines as the divine realm. And one way of looking at Shinkai, Shin as in Kami, spirit, okay? And so, you have, it's interesting, you have the manifest, the hidden, okay? And the divine. And the hidden and the divine realms oftentimes are rather difficult to distinguish. All of a sudden we realize there's a whole universe of energy motion that is existing right along with the manifest. As we go deeper into it, it's even the blueprint for the manifest. And then there's what he calls the divine realm. And so, we go over this stuff again and again. I mean, the Do Sensei and I, we meet now, it's a couple times a week, now that I don't have to drive all the way to San Mateo and fight the traffic back. We oftentimes just do phone conferencing. Okay, so we go over this again and again and again. So let me just move on into, and we'll look at some of our sensei's words here. Okay. Okay, the purpose of Aikido is to bring out the best in people. It is to walk on the divine path. It is the way of the universe. Aikido is the power of the spirit manifest in many ways. Aikido reveals the manner in which the universe works. Human beings share a common destiny to assimilate the true form of the universe within the body and let it permeate the soul. Now, one of his major things, he really talks about, the body, soul, or spirit, and oftentimes, there's, of course, his mind, okay? But I think what happens is a lot of what's mind gets appropriated by what you call I. And so, he seems to like the body and let the spirit come through the body. And of course, there's mind That's a very important factor in all that. But a lot of times the mind gets tied up with I think, I. And that colors or obscures the relationship of spirit to you or me. And so he kind of likes spirit to body, spirit manifest through the body. Okay? The universe appeared as a living shrine. Human beings are living shrines. If gods are found in shrines human beings build of wood, surely they are found in human beings themselves. Thus, we are all children of the divine. The universe is a shrine. We come out of the universe, therefore we have within us the blueprint of that shrine. We are shrines. Human beings are a combination of the divine, the hidden, and manifest aspects of existence. If you do not realize this, no matter how much time you spend chasing after other things, you will never understand. Pretty strong statement. On the manifest level of ordinary existence, I still try to be a bright light. In the hidden world of Buddha, in the divine world of the gods, I do the same. Now, it's kind of interesting, for example, and this is not just here, but in a couple other references, he really talks about the hidden realm as the realm of the Buddha, and the divine realm, the realm of Kami. Okay, spirit, Kami. Okay, and that's something that it's a leitmotif in literature. It keeps repeating. That's, by the way, a term I learned in grad school, leitmotif. Okay. If human beings think like this, they will be able to move freely through the different realms every day and always be in the right place. So right there, he's really saying, that really we are here in the manifest, but we can move freely if we're just here. The other realms exist, but we color ourselves so strongly that they exist and we do bump into them, but we can freely. And he says wherever he is, whether it's manifest or hidden or divine, he tries to be a bright light. And again, there's light out there, but the light that shines from inside. Okay? And I do not need a dojo. I do not desire fame, status, or money. I can teach anywhere, under a tree, on top of a rock. I am standing on the floating bridge of heaven wherever I am. I am always happy to explain these teachings. So that part of it is interesting. He really goes through, I do not need a dojo, but then again, the universe is the dojo. But of course, in the manifest realm, a dojo is a place with a physical location. And right now, dojos, by and large, are closed because of the pandemic. But if the universe was a dojo, then almost anything becomes a way of training in what he called Aiki or Aikido. I can teach anywhere, under a tree, on top of a rock. So he's giving examples within the manifest realm. But the next sentence, I am standing on the floating bridge of heaven wherever I am. I am always happy to explain these things. And that again is the archetype, the pattern that appears so much in what he talks about, which is the floating bridge of heaven. And, he describes it in various ways. But it's, I think, something that we each need to find in our own way and need to, through that, it's a very distinct floating bridge of heaven for him would probably be very different than maybe our experience if we were there. On the other hand, if you were to bump into somebody that was standing on the floating bridge of heaven and you were on that floating bridge yourself, you would say, oh, kinship. And so, since he really talks about the universe is inside us, that and within the three realms, the manifest, hidden, divine, to be able to move freely and wherever you are, be a light, and that he's standing on the floating bridge, all that is, of course, it's kind of inspiring if you read it. In the other senses, but what does it do for us? Right? I mean, here we are in the middle of a pandemic. Our movements restricted. In some cases, we're financially very challenged during this. And probably will continue to be. That's the reality of it. And so all of this, what to do with that? Now, one of the things I sort of got out of that is the one way of maybe looking at the floating bridge. You're on the floating bridge wherever you are. You just travel between the realms. There's that floating bridge wherever you are. And one of the things probably standing there is you can travel. You're going to be light, whether or not you are in the manifest or the hidden or the divine realm. But on the other hand, you're right here in the manifest realm, which we all are very, very rooted in. And you can like that or not. But standing on that bridge, we would have access to or already be lined up to or in the hidden and the manifest. And exactly what that would mean, that's, I guess, really up to the individual. But again, he kind of understand how the universe works, the different layers of it, the dimensional sense of it. Understanding that we come out of the universe, therefore we have the universe potentially inside. The universe is a sacred structure, a shrine, okay? We coming out of that have that inside us. There's a communication that's possible, whether we're in the ordinary world, the hidden world, or the divine. It is possible to, right here, come from, not just know about, but come from and manifest the universe at these finer, more original levels, as we find ourselves at finer and more original levels. So that's kind of what I get out of that. That's very challenging. It can be inspiring. And you can come out of that as, okay, now I'm going to go to the dojo. Whoops, I can't go to the dojo. Or I go to the dojo and either have a great time or I'm very frustrated by this or that. Okay, so anyway, what we can do, I got my prayer stick, whatever it is you want to call it. See, I can do this here and I don't have to worry so much about knocking something, although obviously I could right here. So come on, let's move into the other room. Ah. So we will go here. Okay. And we've got a pretty good full body here. All right. Yeah. First thing I kind of noticed, let's just say that we have the universe inside us. The universe is very vast. But there may be a sense that the interior of us is also vast. We just orient everything out there. So something like centering. And of course, this is a nice prop, got a stick. Right? So whether you're looking at a point or a column, we start to look at the fact that the design of the universe has a center, therefore we, being a part of that universe, we have a center also. Maybe there's an area where my center has a potential wavelength to communicate with the center of the universe. And just as the universe itself can be vast, or conversely, I can look around and I see this room and then, I feel kind of confined because of the pandemic, or I can kind of center. And finding that center, so I'm here, the universe is out there, I'm in here. So you have a horizontal, conversely the vertical nature of the center, and I am positioning at the center. And noticing, for example, that there's a kind of a depth factor, in other words. And feeling of connection, communion continues up, but it also extends deeper. And I can position myself between the up and the down. Then you have your, and there's again an interior and an exterior and an exterior, talking back to the interior. And I start to realize that my breath has a rhythm. And there's more theory to me right now, but the universe itself probably has a beat, a breath. So if I kind of relax and keep my alignment, maybe certain things start to happen like, my breath, the larger breath, starts to naturally kind of resonate together. And again, the feeling is sort of, you're communing with it. It's like, I'm busy, I'm going to do this. So you got to kind of hush a bit. Be very easy there. Yeah. And, certainly here, the movement may also expand in different directions. So, I'm just holding a stick. And I'm kind of taking, the words. We can just stay with the words. It becomes theory or philosophy. But again, going back to the breathing, and possibly the universe if it's alive. If a physical body, okay, that's we call the ordinary world the Genkai. But I also have an energy body. Energy body. For example, I'm kind of moving. I kind of feel like I'm moving through something. So my own physical movement is in tune with a larger body. The movement expands out, comes back. A lot of Tai Chi, for example, is good because you'll be able to learn a chance to investigate that. And then there's what he calls the divine realm. Divine realm. You can get lost there. Divine. Looking for the divine. Well, what if the divine were inside? If the universe comes out of that or is that, then that's also inside us. So as we start to more awaken, I'm sort of getting the beat of things here, but also and all three are right here. I can know that, or it's almost like, for me right here, I begin to feel like I'm a child being carried by the body of the mother that is the universe. And there is the circulation of blood and nutrients. There's kind of the heartbeat. And so the body I'm inside of and connected to. There's a feeling of being very, very, the body of the mother protects the child inside. And again, there's depth, and whatever it is continues. So before we've even done any movements, we can start to. Now, one thing, for example, we go back, and more of a meditation style. For me, the meditation can get somewhat passive, whereas what we were doing is a very active connection, even participation within some version of possibly the universe out there and the universe in here. And some of the sitting is like, I have my own noise. The noisy mind plays I. But the I also exists at a variety of different levels. So there's that. I notice, for example, my breathing, as I kind of settle, gets a bit deeper. And surprisingly, we did all that motion. There's a feeling of light emanating. I might miss that if I just went into meditation, but we've done some movement. Not a harsh light, it's a very warm, open light. So Sensei said, wherever he is, ordinary or hidden or divine, he wants to be the light. But we get light out there. And I noticed, for example, that even though there's potential for many things, there's a overriding sense of calm. And given the situation, like we've just gone, we're still in technically because votes are being counted still, and there are all these investigations about the validity of the count, everything like that. So there's been a lot of activity, potential tension of this, tension around that, but it's kind of refreshing to kind of sit in this calm. You might find, for example, that we're so used to stimuli out there, stimulation, world of I, or converse, that we go, oh my God, I'm so tired. It's just not just knowing about, but actually kind of soaking in the calm. As I kind of soak in the calm, I'm more conscious of the fact there are currents that run through that calm without disturbing the calm. My own breath continues, my breathing. And there's been so much stimulation lately that sometimes when I do this, not today, but I'm looking for, it's almost like that's caffeine. And I've been not sleeping and too active, and I've been living off of caffeine. And just soaking here. So the calm is here, but also I feel currents moving. The story, the myth that comes to mind here is Izanagi. Izanami crosses over. She goes into the land of the dead. And she tells Izanagi, do not follow me. But he does. And down there, in the Nenokuni, the land of the roots, the underworld, she gets really angry. And she sicks all these nasty energies onto Izanagi and chases him out through the different realms. And Sensei kind of says, when he comes out, he's so shaken. He's not a god anymore. In other words, to me, that represents all those forces that have come inside to create ordinary world and I within that ordinary world. So what does he do? He has to find this river, the river Odo, and soak. And so what I'm kind of getting is, there's this calm. These currents within that river, that calm. I can just sort of soak here. A lot of the overstimulation around the election, all the apprehension is still there, but I'm not a part of that. I'm more increasing the part of the calm. And almost the life-affirming currents that are going through that calm. And mental activity, what is this? What's this going to do? Is this going to da 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 da? That takes me back up there. So that's natural, but I'm just going to soak here. Again, my mind wants to assemble something, get busy with something. I'm going to soak. The word that Nado Sensei likes, he says easy, open, or settled. What are you settling in? And so soaking really means that you're getting deeper into the experience, not the words. Words may get you in this direction. Now, something that starts to kind of emerge through the calm is silence. It's always been there. Another thing that starts to emerge through that is stillness. So I'm too busy to appreciate the silence. And I'm too busy appreciating the stillness. So soaking in that calm, feeling those currents moving through the calm, but don't disrupt the calm at all. The other qualities that start to show, like the stillness and the silence. All of a sudden, the light I was feeling here, I'm sort of conscious of that. All of a sudden, like you're providing light. All of a sudden, the light out there goes on. It's always been there. I'm looking at that, I get mesmerized by it. Not looking for the light in here, but as I kind of settle a bit, go more deeply into whatever process I'm in, that starts to show. And then also somewhat connected to the calmness, which has its own aliveness. It's calm, but it's alive. Other things like stillness, silence start to come in. Right about there, the whole room starts to light up. And again, what I'm doing is, the meditation can be just sit, and that's good. But you can also be involved in creating an experiential chain for yourself as you sit or move. Breathing's kind of starting to merge with everything that we're talking about. So the experience is, as well as lots going on out there, it's still kind of based also in here. It starts to be the feeling that as you kind of settle, you're starting to kind of touch what you might call root. very deep ground. It's interesting as I kind of settle into that, I sort of start to get images like, you know, like lotus images. They're composed of light. Tendency to go out there into that, but you stay with the ground too. A lot of times in meditation, you'll get imagery. It's easy to kind of get under, what does this mean? I mean, just sort of sit and soak. Just tracking my breathing. Breathing is very rhythmic. In fact, again, yeah, the shift now from breathing, deeper, finer breathing to breath. And again, just wanting to do things, question this or that. I'm just going to be easy here and continue to soak. And down here, I'm so conscious of all that mental activity. It's still going on, but I'm positioned a little deeper so I can observe that without getting so caught up in it. So I'm really trying to get into the experience of the root. Whatever, you know, trying to figure out what it is, but in its connection to the light, the calm, the current. Not trying to figure it out, but just sort of soaking. Letting whatever comes just reveal itself through that calm. And what comes up for me right there is things I've read about O-Sensei in his prayer time, how he started the day. Not that this is prayer per se, it's just more of a experiential journey using, you know, initially some movement, now going into more of a sitting style. In fact, I've made that journey. On the other hand, we're still in this physical realm. Something we haven't done very much. It's just sort of simple. If you have a rug or something, I would recommend. If you're on hardwood floor, you can do this and punish yourself, make yourself tougher. But that's not really the spirit of what we're doing right now, right? Now there was that calm, and there was movement or currents within the calm. Now the body's in motion. Simple motion. not going to get up and try some great falls right now. I'm kind of conscious of the fact that, I'm not doing this a lot these days. So I'm not in an Aikido class for teaching. So, my butt says, oh, you haven't really done this in a while. It's okay. So going into more of what you call a physical practice. I'm going to switch sides. Initially, okay, it's somewhat of a shock because you're moving the body, you're feeling the floor, right? And we've kind of journeyed way past what you call just physical body, but those waves or currents in the field of calm, they're here. So, standing. I've still got my stick with me, all right? So, I'm starting to move a bit. So what was interesting for me, there was that calm. That calm. I'm busy moving. There's that calm. Now I can fall asleep in the calm. But within the calm, there are currents. And I can kind of ride here, for example, boom. Those currents can have shapes. They can create spins and turns. Boom. They have jets. Boom, 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 jet here. I get too busy out there, but there's the calm there. Boom, boom, boom. And there are all these different turns in there. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. But if I go deeply enough into that calm is here. So just standing. Now we talked a lot about standing on the floating bridge. I get too mental about what did he mean, or will I ever be able to do that, or whatever it is. But just standing in that calm, realizing, it's in a very alive calm. There are currents within the calm. There are currents within the calm. Currents within the calm. So, motion and stillness there are very, very, they're so close. You can commune in the calm, and on the other hand, there's these currents that are moving and turning and evolving, and there's still the calm that they're happening through. Movement, stillness, Chuo Sensei's 8 powers. Again, I use a shorter staff, which I kind of like. The Do-sensei said Do-sensei had a prayer stick and he carried it around. And he could use it like it's a sword, or he could make it a staff spear motion. We'll go back to that sense. I have a center. Maybe the universe has a center. It's funny to me that the substance of the center is an awful lot like that calm. All the way down there, we kind of found there was a root, or I did. It seems to come out of something that is the substance of that calm. And then there's also all this motion in terms of currents that happen without necessarily departing from the calm. And I go back to that myth around Izanagi in the river, right? He's so shaken, he's out there, he's not a god anymore. So he has to kind of go back. Initially just sort of soak. There are levels of soaking. So he's all of a sudden just too much a prisoner of the ordinary realm. Starts to soak. So let's go into the hidden realm of it. It's a calm. As he gets deeper in that calm, he begins to realize there are currents in that calm. And those currents don't pull you back into that thing. Deeper, deeper, deeper soak. Deeper, deeper, deeper soak. Deeper, deeper, deeper soak. Deeper, deeper, deeper soak. So get closer to the root. All that's moving really fast. All that's moving really fast. We're rooted in the calm at the same time. So I can do all of that without losing the calm. So I'm going to, now I don't sit seiza very much, so the second I do that, my knees start to bark up, but I'm going to, that's the ordinary world. And I've noticed that I'm a lot more forward than I would like, and up. But again, there's a calm here. It's almost like the swirls back there. They're kind of like a sauna. I kind of feel myself, my base starting to shift back. And then to kind of sink under a bit. That's still going on. I mean, the knees are barking and everything like that. But I can shift my focus for the moment onto the calm, the deep, the root. And it's almost like, there's my center is like a peg and it's kind of a little out. Now it's starting to kind of settle in, and that peg has kind of a hole that connects me to some of that. So it took me probably 90 seconds or so to really kind of find a good place here. You put myself in a different situation, moving around, nice. All of a sudden, this can be punishment. I got to sit here, darn it. I haven't done this much. Okay. Took me a good 90 seconds to 2 minutes to actually find a pretty good position here. And I'm kind of finding that my right ankle is a little holding more tension than my left. So that I noted, but on the other hand, I'm just going to soak a bit deeper. As I do that, the right ankle starts to open up. And one thing that comes up for me right here is, since they're really talking about you, the spirit comes through the body. Okay, I haven't sat seiza regularly, really, in a while. So I just sat, why did I do that? Well, I'm like anybody else. I haven't done that for a while. And I'm teaching classes. I'm down here quite a bit. Now, we don't have the regular class going on, so I'm like most everybody. I don't sit this way just to sit this way. So now this ankle is about the same as the other ankle. This is a little slower. Okay. I so note So that's the activity of the eye. All of a sudden, you know, it starts to get kind of calmer down here. So I'm approaching that same place. Took me a while because I changed the activity. Yeah. Right about here, I'm starting to kind of get the beginnings of that experience of the root. Now my breathing starts to be very much like it was in the other place I was in. But it takes time sometimes and go, oh, I should be there. Yeah, okay. The breathing starts to kind of settle a bit deeper. It's almost like right here. Sometimes you get different images here. It's another variant of the root, but it's the energy pool, the pool of calm. And again, you soak. So I don't know, what does this mean? Or, why is it a pool instead of the root? And try to be very easy there. I notice as I kind of really settle with it, the light from here starts to reemerge. And all of a sudden, the lights out there go on. But this goes on first. So you get to a fairly similar place with maybe some slight variations. You'll find that if you repeat these things, you'll find that you have your own road markers. And just as I'm kind of settling in here, right? And then you start to change and you realize, okay, it's going to take me a little longer than when I was a lot younger to get back up here. And the legs feel kind of cramped for a second, but you just sort of soak. That river, that calm is still going on, and also that aliveness is going on here. That's why some of this stuff is very hard to teach, because, you know, there are currents in that river of calm, or that pool of calm. And that root is very alive. Okay? I just go into the calm and just sort of drift. Or I can go into the silence and get very passive. Right? Boom, 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 boom. Now the movement itself, can boom. There can be some real currents in that river. It was explained to me once. You have a river. Right at the bottom, it appears like the river is real slow, but it's really very fast there. Up here, currents obvious. Down there at the bottom, appears very still and slow. But there's a different type of speed going on down there. And I notice that the movements themselves, that motion, each of them has a movement within that motion. The movement within it, boom, boom, adds to the aliveness without disturbing the calm. So we can take a just a couple of words, for example, that O Sensei said, and we can meditate on them or think about them, but we can also start to do our own experiential chain around that, which I find, I mean, it's, what else are we going to do? But as O Sensei, I do not need a dojo. Or the other way of phrasing it, the whole universe is my dojo, or your dojo. See, I don't think he was fundamentally different than us. He was just a lot more developed. And he put his energy to use in ways that most of us dissipate. Okay? And that's in the Castaneda books, Don Juan just says, look, I'm teaching you to be a warrior, not a fighter, a warrior. He or she who is on that path to total being, or whatever it is you want to call it. He said that the thing that you find is that, you use your energy more efficiently. And most people, they just pulled out of them. We only see time as it's receding. We can ride time as it advances. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom, boom. If you were to collapse or extend time, something would appear to, something fast coming out would be very slow here, wouldn't it? And conversely, if somebody expects you to move at this speed, but you go boom, boom, by squeezing time, boom, there'd be speed. Boom, 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 boom. Now, how does that movement go? It just has to be something that moves through you. Moves through you, through you, through you, through you. Boom, 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 boom. I get the same feeling sometimes when I'm playing well with a horn, because the riffs just happen. And I'm sure Sensei kind of likes sometimes you see him. He's just wailing. Because that's fun too. And all of that is right. Does not disturb the background of the calm. Without disturbing the calm. Anyway, we are kind of getting towards that. But today it's just more me meandering through a process. But we can go to the other room and check in and see what you might have gotten, or did I create some confusion where there wasn't before? So anyway, well, so I guess today, I mean, I didn't particularly plan on doing that, but things have been so crazy, with the election, which technically is still going on because of the recounting, and all the lawsuits have been filed. So just to really settle, use maybe some of O Sensei's words to bring about our own sort of experiential change. So what I did today is just sort of share mine. It's in the moment. If I were to do it again, maybe tomorrow, there'd be some similarities, or it might go into a very different track. Okay, the universe is the universe, but our viewpoint on it from this angle or that angle or that oftentimes can shift. two patterns that O-sensei taught Robert Nadeau sensei, the center circle, the fire water. Okay? And there are a couple others, I think, that around. And so apparently Nadeau sensei asked him once, well, what's the best one? And he said something, you'll have your favorite. Like O-sensei's pattern, what he really liked was the fire water. Okay, and Nadeau sensei also is fire water. I tend to like the center circle. It's just me. But you have some familiarity with the fire water. Okay? It's all the same thing. It's just it's good to sometimes you see something and you look at it from different angles. And you realize when you see it from, it's some level of you, different level of you, different level of you. What's there is the same thing. Okay? I had that realization once when I was, shooting, just practice shooting. I wasn't playing basketball, just shooting. And I realized the hoop wasn't going anywhere. What was really in constant motion was me. I'd make it, then I'd miss. So what was changing? Not the hoop, it was me. So, that part of the universe is the universe, but we look at it from different angles. And it may appear to be different. And it's useful to do that because this is the truth. It's like, yeah, we see it from a narrow angle and we can get pretty obnoxious. Conversely, if I just drift in all the different directions, but examine it from here, examine it from here, examine it from here. Examine in that motion, examine it in that motion, examine it in that motion. So that's kind of what we try to do. Anybody with a question, a comment on that? That was maybe a little different. I hope I didn't ruin anybody's day by doing that, but I kind of needed it after the election. So anybody want to chime in or?
That was the perfect class for me today.
Good. Thank you.
That's what I needed right now.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. That's really all we've got. Is right here, right now, right? I mean, we think, well, what if this? Right here, right now, what's going on? Well, since I said the universe in its total perfection is going right on now. And if we get too caught up in all this stuff, we may miss it. What was that movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Life moves kind of fast. If you're a little slow, you'll miss it. Universe is going on right now, but if we're a little too dense or a little too busy, we may miss it. Thank you. Anybody else or anything more? Yeah,
I find it's also perfect.
Yeah.
I find it's also perfect for me. You seem to be able to feel where your students are and provide what we want, or we're all in the same place. I don't know which is which, but it's certainly wonderful.
Yeah, well, the point is you can do this on your own too. I mean, to be honest with you, I've done bits and pieces of it, but I haven't for a while just devoted an hour just on my own private process, which I share because I assume that it may trigger something for you. I mean, you can't copy this, right? I mean, basically you're you. I can be kind of a guide and say, this is what's going on with me. But on the other hand, you can do the same thing. Well, since he said something, he was doing all this, blazing this trail, and looked behind him and nobody was following him. And so he kind of felt a little lonely, right? In fact, that was one of the things, that I think about Nadeau sensei, is that, for a lot of people, he's really hard to take. And I'll put myself in that sometimes, okay? But on the other hand, just from other people that knew O-sensei, the two of them were really close, apparently. And that, you could argue that Nadeau sensei's movement's very different. Yeah, probably. But they were very close. I think he and Robert Fraser sensei were very close as well. I think it's almost like, they're both non-Japanese, and there's an area when you're O-sensei even, you have this position, within the Japanese culture, and you're dealing with people within your culture. And so you meet a couple of people that are not of your culture, and they may see you differently, and you like that. And so for that reason, you reach out, and there's a connection at a different level. Fraser Sensei, he opened the very first PhD program in transpersonal psychology in North America. At the time, it was California Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. Then it became the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. Now it's, as far as I know, it's Sophia University. So that's all, And so, he kind of did his work, and the Do Sensei really was responsible behind a lot of the opening of dojos. Just in this area was just coming up. Now, there are many dojos that kind of, just, are different, like lineages, but San Jose, Santa Cruz, where I started, I mean, it was Robert Fraser Sensei, but Nado Sensei and he were so close in those days that there was a kind of a mutual sense that they were kind of a team in those days. So my particular emphasis, I mean, this motion, I can do it faster or more this way, but boom, within that one motion, or that double motion, there's that calm going on. Those currents of calm going on. And there's my perception of level of me there that is going through. And as I kind of can take all three of those down to the root, or, you can work the same thing up there, it's just that it tends to kind of be a bit more just awareness. So using the body, using motion to kind of map out. Nado Sensei, for example, is a mapper. He's just fine. He likes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm kind of more like in the moment. I just, I intuitively assemble in the moment. I mean, Chet Baker, there were, like really talented musicians, but they wouldn't like be the headline. So people like Charlie Parker or Chet Baker or Miles Davis, all of a sudden they're going to hire that group because of, right? But some of them, they play around with the different musicians. And a couple of them said, I played with so-and-so, and after, a couple of nights, I pretty much got what they did. But they said, we played with Baker, and he was different almost every night. That, what was coming through him was very much in the moment, right? And so what we just did is just sort of compose kind of a poem or song in consciousness. In fact, Deepak Chopra said something once I thought was kind of cute. He said, the word universe is the one song or the one verse, a poem, a song. Like right here, I kind of do this crazy stuff as I get older, but there's a beat or pulse that's inside me, on heartbeat, breathing. And then the movements that come out of that beat or pulse. Now, the other thing kind of echoes back. You expand out together, come back together, boom, boom. And then, the movements themselves, there are changes off of that primal beat. And there's this calm that doesn't lose itself as these currents come in. Boom, 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 boom. boom, boom, boom. And so, you know, this is stuff that I do. I mean, I don't, you know, purpose of sequences and forms is good, but you know, I kind of, that's where I like to hang out. All right. Anyway, anybody else with anything to kind of share on that one? It's just my system kind of needed that after the past week, and you know, to some degree, the uncertainty of the future. So you know, sometimes it's good to. I like that place, you know, where you're in that calm, and there's all this aliveness or these currents going on, but that calm is still there. If I get too caught up in the movement of it, I go back right into the ordinary world or some weird side dimension of the hidden. So kind of finding that. And you know, that the movements can speed up or my understanding you come really fast to it. Sensei, he'd be moving at the speed and you just wonder where he went. He called that katsu hayabi, that no time, no space, right here, right now, everything going on. From the stupidest part of the ordinary realm to the divine realm, right here, right now. And so if we kind of, you know, the thing about his words is they're beautiful. But to really work our own process, which is, I think, you know, he was diagramming his for us to find ours. And if we get somewhat, you know, the inspiration to do that from him, then he's done his work. You know, if those of you that tuned in today didn't get lost or drift off or get bored off of what we did today, then my job was just to recount my particular process in a way that would encourage you to do your process. And yours will be somewhat similar, but also uniquely you, right? I remember Bruce Lee said, you know, 3 things. He said the first one, find out what works, what's useful. 2, discard what isn't. And then 3, add what's uniquely you. Anyway, just an announcement. Tonight, 7:30, I don't know, I sort of planned, you know, just was thinking about with the Tai Chi doing the 54 movements, but it may not be a good time. Towards the end of the year, everything slows down or just sort of goes in too many directions at the same time. But I'm planning on meeting tonight and see if anybody's interested in the 54. If it's just one person or something, it's better to pass on and do it later. But the other thing is we can just go through the 30 movements and refine and practice that together as a unit, which is different than doing the lessons. Now, what I found is that I used to do both with Master Choi because he would do the 2 weekends out of the month, first and third, he would lead a practice for the short form and the long form. As he kind of developed, he would add the joint hands, which we can't do right now because of social distancing. And then, you know, some of us got the sword and the saber movements. He would actually start to do that on the weekends. But I repeated the beginning course again and again and again. And there's certain things, for example, you know, you can learn a movement, and you sort of go, see, that movement is just going on. I can look at it, but all of a sudden I realize that movement just going on is also going on in my neck and head. And it's also going on in my other shoulder. And then it's also going on my hip. And it's also going on in the. And so what happens right there, I mean, it's a point where that was not just to repeat the movements, it was kind of really study that place he was coming from. And, you know, I mean, realization I had of all the teachers that I studied with. See, the Aikido teachers were interesting because in a lot of ways, Sensei took them so far just by virtue of what he was doing, who he was. Master Choi kind of had this awakening enlightenment experience that you know, he studied with his father, you know, because his father was a Tai Chi master. But, you know, mainly he was a, you know, Kung Fu street gang guy and a weightlifter and everything like that, just into getting better, stronger. And he studied, you know, harder forms of Kung Fu. And then one day he just had this, and then it kept on happening. And, you know, he kind of talked to me about it, you know, because it's the point where, you know, at some point, you know, it's like all of a sudden you go, where's my body? I'm part of an energy field. The body's there, but you know, the field is so strong going through these movements. And then, you know, what happens is, you know, you go like that. And then you have like time-lapse photography. Boom. You can watch a tree grow, boom, in just a moment. And so he kind of had that quality. So, you know, I was thinking, even somebody like Ano Sensei, yeah, he worked and he trained, but he also got a lot just from watching O Sensei, right? And feeling O Sensei, being in the field of O Sensei's ki. And Master Choi, pretty much, I mean, I've seen films of his father. His father's really good, but Master Choi, so much more fluid than his father was. And I don't know whether that was looked upon well in the foreign world of Tai Chi. Master Choi was a bit more like that. But boom, he could boom. You know, all of that was there, and it could boom, just be every frame and time lapse. Boom. And that's what I saw with him. It was very, very fascinating to me. So anyway, tonight I'll be here at 7:30. See if we can, and just if we don't do the 54, we'll just see if we can get a group going on Wednesday night just to kind of go through the full 30 movements. So, okay, anybody else? Okay, so thank you very much. And here we go.